when when is it okay to be alone? Because we talk a lot about finding love again, doing this, but some people are okay alone and they're not jaded and they're not unhappy.
Did you push record?
Thanks again for tuning back into our second act with Paige and Soka. Today we're continuing our conversation with Darrell Gurney about relationships and how his philosophy of the back 40 applies in our personal life as well. Darrell, thanks so much for joining me again.
Absolutely.
So on our we just ended our discussion, about the whole idea of becoming jaded at this point in our lives, and you've said some interesting things when it comes to reframing that. Let's briefly pick up on that, and then let's go into some tips on how to get over assuming that all men are this way or all women are this way and that relationships just aren't for us.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to relationships, we can have an experience with a particular person. And, the tendency, and I talk about this in the book, society tells us that we're supposed to be growing in wisdom. So, as we get older, you hear people say, yeah, I've been there, done that, been around the block a few times, or, so in other words, there's this idea that we're supposed to have experiences, get smart about them, and then get locked in to the way we see things. The bad news about that is that was one experience. It was one experience with a man like that. It was one experience with a woman like that. By the way, I'm being a little bit facetious here when I say a man like that or a woman like that, because as we talked about in the last segment, what if you caused it all?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you were a victim to that man like that or that woman like that. What if you set it all up as a laboratory to have you grow in the ways that on a soul level you actually came here to grow? By the way, when we come here and we get to be 18, 20 and stuff like that, we're going to college trying to figure out our life. We're not in touch with the sole purpose that we came here for, right? That stuff's kind of embedded. My story a little bit, but I'll just throw it in there. It was at 40 years old. When I was 40, I was in a $500,000 custody suit to maintain my relationship with my son. Seemed like the worst thing that it could ever happen to me. I seemed like the biggest loser at 40, and I could really launch into blaming her. Do you know that that is the best thing that ever occurred for me? Because that's when this whole idea of the back 40 came. That's when the inspiration to look at life like, whoa, who am I going to get to be now?
Mm-hmm.
Now I have no blame for her. I have no blame for any of it because I designed all that to become the more compassionate, open, authentic, loving, caring. I could go on being that I'm still becoming. I ain't there yet. But again, if we created that woman like that or that man like that, why did we do that? And what do we get to now see about ourselves in terms of the direction that we want to become in our life?
Right. And again, we are focused on the segments that we're doing this time, about being open to go into a new relationship, with the right attitude, without the resentment, I'm done with relationships, I'm done with life. Yes, I'm hearing you say, of course, and I totally agree, is that reframing that imprint, that our way.
Can I give you a tip? You asked for a tip. Can I
Yes,
give you a
of
tip?
course.
Yeah. I'll give you an exercise that I actually mentioned in the book, and it's really what I will say is the resulted in me being married and in my relationship now. At 50 years old, I was in a course. I love personal development. I think personal development just always gives us an opportunity to look at ourselves versus, the others, and what's wrong with them. And in this course, I was looking to see, um, I mean, this is going to sound funny, but who I am that relationships are. In other words, we live life and we make decisions about things, and it just becomes who we are. And, I was still single. I'd been single for 18 years. And I did a little exercise where I wrote at the top of the page, who am I that dating and relationships are? Who am I? And I just started letting it spill out. Relationships are dicey. The one I want doesn't want me. The one that wants me, I don't want. All those kind of things. Just journaling, 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 journaling. And I did like several pages in a spiral. I got to, I wrote one last thing and then I stared at it. Because what I wrote was, I can't trust a woman with my heart. And when I wrote that, and I saw that that's really deep down my belief system, I realized it doesn't matter how much I'm on Match and Plenty of Fish and, meeting people at church or meeting people in other programs. If that's where I'm coming from, there ain't no chance. So it gave me an opportunity, that kind of an exercise gives you an opportunity to look at what your beliefs really are. And if you're going to have something other than what you have right now, you got to look at shifting the beliefs, being willing to take a risk outside of those old embedded belief systems.
Great point. I want to ask one last question for this segment, which I alluded to in the last one, and that is, what if you do, the first 40 years prepare you for now? When is it okay to be alone, or when that's really what you want? Maybe that's what life prepared you for, and you don't. Yeah. Because we talk a lot about finding love again, doing this, but some people are okay alone and they're not jaded and they're not unhappy.
There's not a thing wrong with being alone. What I see as the biggest issue, though, is that people will fool themselves. They don't consciously choose being alone out of the growth that it is, but they justify and rationalize being alone to cover up the real fact that they're scared to death about relationships. So again, I'm not saying a consciously chosen, because there's been a lot of people. Wayne Dyer, for example. Wayne Dyer was married for many years, had many, many kids. Later in life, they separated. He wanted to be alone. He wanted to do his spiritual work. He wanted to live in Hawaii and do his books and stuff like that. In other words, if it's part of a growth path, a consciously designed growth path, great. If it's a resistance based on fear, then I'm saying, I think all of life comes from facing your fears and seeing what's on the other side.
Are you going to be addressing issues like that in the new book that's coming out?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Darrell, as usual, our segments just race away. So I'm going to close out this one because I think that was just such an excellent point, the way you described the difference between wanting to be alone and holding yourself, imprisoning yourself into that. So I
know you're going to wrap up, but I'll just say this. And also, as we get older, relationships don't have to look the simple, easy, Snow White way that they did when we were young. It's like, oh, the objective is to get married. Well, you know what? Maybe you can love many people. I mean, there's things like polyamory. There's lots of different things that are available as we mature, where love doesn't have to be fit into a simple box like it used to be.
Well, you know what? I'm going to hold you over for another segment because I just thought of a great topic that might be of interest. We'll see you next time on our next segment on Our Second Act with Paige and Silka. Thanks for joining us today. For more videos on finding love again after 50, please visit our website, secondact.tv, and look on our homepage. In the upper right-hand corner, we have a suggestion box. So if there's topics that you'd like to see us cover in the future, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time. Bye-bye.